Let me walk you through to create this type of product visualization in Blender. We're gonna model and texture and set a scene for this product. And of course it will be a friendly beginner tutorial. Salam alaikum. This tutorial have an English and Arabic subtitle. Feel free to use it if you want. We're gonna start with the modeling part and go to the viewport and then select everything and delete it by pressing the X in keyboard. We're gonna hit the Shift A and bring a circle because it have a similar shape to our bottle. Now we're gonna go to the little menu in the bottom of the screen and reduce the vertex number. Now you're gonna select your circle and hit tab so you can go to the edit mode, and then we're gonna start modeling and defining our shape. Now on a normal day you're gonna use an image as a reference. We're just gonna get create and use our brain to do this. So while we are in the side view, all we're gonna do is just press A to select all the vertex, and now what we're gonna do is press E to extrude, Z to extrude them in a certain axis. Now we're gonna change the view a little bit and then start to extrude them inward and maybe move them a little bit upwards and move them again with E and Z. Extrude them one more last time inside, and then we're gonna extrude them in the Z axis. And now we're gonna go to the bottom vertex and extrude them inside maybe 1 or 2 times. We're gonna fill the face in the bottom by hitting the F. Now what we're gonna do is select all the vertex by hitting A and hitting E to extrude them and hitting Alt S so we can change the shape a little bit so it can make some thickness to our perfume bottle. We're gonna hit tab in keyboard so we can get out of the edit mode, and then we're gonna select our bottle and gonna shade it smooth, and then we're gonna add 2 levels of subdivision by pressing Ctrl 2 in keyboard, or you can add it from the modifiers menu. Of course we're gonna add the bevel modifier so we can just sharp the edges on the bottle. I feel like I'm gonna sharp the bottom of the bottle more, so I'm gonna select an edge and then I'm gonna press Ctrl P in keyboard and add 3 segments. I'm gonna give the bubble shape of 1, but you don't really need to because there's no one gonna see it from the bottom anyway, so you feel free to do whatever you want. It's your model. So before we're gonna go to the texturing part, I'm gonna go back to the edit mode so we can add more segment and more edge loops to the bottle. And after we done that, to model the top part of our model. So I'm gonna show you how to add circular quad shape. Anyway, we're gonna hit Shift A, we're gonna bring a cube. After we bring the cube, we're gonna scale the cube so it can fit in our perfume. And we're gonna give it 2 levels of subdivision and we're gonna apply them. And then we're gonna go to add modifier and we're gonna add a cast modifier and we're gonna give it a factor of 1, and then we're gonna add another subdivision modifier to it so we can smooth the shape. You can feel free to add 1 level or 2 level of subdivision. We're gonna go to edit mode, we're gonna go to side view and we're gonna select the bottom part of the circle, we're gonna delete and we're gonna select this vertex and we're gonna extrude them in Z axis. Make sure just not go below the perfume mesh, and then we're gonna select all the vertex by pressing A, and then we're gonna press E and Alt S so we can extrude them inward. And that is, we have some thickness to our top part of our perfume model, and we just finished the modeling part. And of course we don't forget to bevel our cover. Okay, now in this part all I want to do is just add some text and some random label for our perfume bottle. I'm gonna get back to you when I finish so we can start right away on texturing the perfume bottle. Now we're gonna create some liquid inside our bottle. All we have to do is just selecting a face from inside, and we're gonna hit Ctrl plus so we can select more faces, and then we're gonna hit Shift and D so we can duplicate the mesh, and we're gonna hit P so we can separate by selection. Now what we're gonna do is just select this vertex and extrude them inward few time, and we're gonna fill them with Angon, and now we're gonna texture this with some liquid texture in the texturing part. Now if you take a second to look our perfume bottle, you may think it looks normal, right? But you will be wrong because the object size is really big and we have to rescale it for a smaller number. So when we're gonna light the setup, nothing goes wrong and everything works as we want it. So we're just gonna readjust it to a smaller number like 8 centimeter or something, and we're gonna apply the scale. Now we are in a solid view. Gonna go to the render view and we're gonna tweak some settings and we have some lighting so we can start our texturing process. Gonna make sure to change the render setting to cycle, and then we're gonna change our rendering device to GPU, and then we're gonna just reduce the samples that we're gonna work with. We're just gonna add the lights and just gonna tweak them a little bit, so we're just gonna give a simple lighting setup. We were not gonna use this when we try to render the project or to see our texture. And we're gonna add a plane so the light can reflect from the plane to the object, so we will have a nice lighting to our project. And we're just gonna tweak it also. We're gonna extrude the edges so we have a very nice setup. It is not important, you cannot do this if you want to, just have a very decent lighting so you can tweak the materials and see what's happening there. We're gonna start with the cover of the bottle and we're gonna give it a black material. Gonna reduce the roughness for something less than 0.5, maybe 0.4, 0.3, something in that range. To the bottle body, I gave it a material and I call it bottle main, and in the principle BSDF we're gonna reduce the roughness to 0 and we're gonna increase the transmission weight to 1. That is, I have a simple glass material. Now our object is transparent, we're gonna see the liquid inside. In this part we're gonna use node wrangler add-on, and to enable it you have to go to the edit and hit on preference and then go to add-ons and search for node wrangler, and then so we're gonna create the label badge, and to do this we're gonna go back to the edit mode in the solid view and we're gonna hit tab. So we're gonna, as we said, we're gonna go to edit mode and then we're gonna select this face, and we're gonna select this face by pressing shift and control, and we're gonna select the face, so it's gonna select all the faces from there to here. We're gonna hit shift D to duplicate the mesh, and we're gonna hit B so we can separate it by selection, and now we have this separated mesh from the main perfume bottle. Now this will be the text area when we will apply or add the texture for the bottle, the text texture. So before doing this we're gonna just give it some depth or some thickness. So we're gonna select this mesh and then we're gonna hit E. We go to the edit mode and select everything, and we're gonna extrude it, and by pressing E of course, and then we're gonna press Alt S, so we're gonna bring them outward a little bit, and that is, we now with the edit mode and go shading. To texture it, we're gonna add a new material, and then we're going to click on principle BSDF and we're gonna hit Ctrl T, so we add the previous setup of nodes. We're gonna select our texture from this image texture node, so we're gonna select our textures that we created earlier in the video and we're gonna add it. When we're gonna add it, we're gonna go back to the edit mode and we're gonna select some faces so we can unwrap them. So we're gonna apply the texture on these faces. So to do this, we go to edit mode, and then after we selecting our faces, we're gonna press U and we're gonna hit U so we can unwrap them. We're gonna press unwrap, and that have unwrap surface so we can apply our texture to it. We're gonna go to the UV editing workspace, and we're gonna see our unwrap vert in there. If you don't see your image texture, you can select it by going here and select your texture from here. So we're gonna adjust the rotation and the scale of our unwrap surface. We're gonna rotate them and we're going to scale them so it can fit on the label badge, and we're gonna do some tweaking and some adjustment, and then we're gonna complete the tutorial. We can scale them with the same shortcut we used earlier on the tutorial. So we're gonna hit S to scale, we're gonna hit G to move them, and we're going to rotate them by hitting R, of course. We absolutely can select any axis that you want to rotate on. Of course, we working in 2D space here, so we have the x-axis and the y-axis, and we don't use the z-axis in this workspace. It's fun to know that. Of course, to the perfume bottle, you can change them to whatever color that you want to on your design and what you see fit the design better. I can stick to the white color. We're going to move to the next part, and it will be set up a scene so we can make some few renders. I see you in the next part. This part I'm gonna make it quick. So we're gonna start by adding a cube and rescale it on the z-axis, and we're gonna put our product on top of it, and we're gonna rotate it a little bit so it can face the camera when we add it. We're gonna add a plane, we're gonna scale it on y and x axis. We're gonna extrude it a little bit, and we're gonna extrude it in the z axis so it can give us a nice background. So we're gonna press shift A and we're gonna add a camera, and we're gonna make it face the object. We're gonna go to setting of the camera and we're gonna adjust the focal length, something like 85. It's gonna work fine. So of course we're gonna adjust a few stuff here and there. We're gonna rotate and move some stuff in the scene, so we are aiming to have a very decent render at the end. There is no specific rules so you can follow, just try to make it good. Maybe I'm gonna create a video about composition on the future so you can watch that. Feel free to let me know in the comment. I'm gonna go to the render view and make sure you are using Cycles engine and using the GPU as a rendering device. And now we're gonna go to our world setting and go to this option. We're gonna decrease the strength to 0. We're gonna make sure our environment light does not affect our scene. So we're gonna use 3 light setup, and we're going to use a light on the background so it's gonna give us the gradient effect on the background. gonna start with a backlight or a fill light. It will prevent our object from blending with the background, and we're gonna add a fill light and a key light. The key light, it will be our main source of lighting, so it have the more high light value, and our fill light, it will soften the light coming from the key light and give us a nice shadow to our object. So that it. And then when we done that, we will add another light. It will cast on the background, so it will give us that nice gradient background looks. And that it. So I'm just going to adjust this stuff until I find the best setting that works for me. So here is our final result. So for everyone reached this point, I want to thank you and I appreciate it a lot. I hope you learned something new today. Really hope to see you again in another tutorial. And that has been said, have a nice day and Assalamu alaikum.